Who's your commander?
Good luck.
Equip.
Move to combat. Resolves.
Right.
Now, before you attack
Does
me,
anyone have an answer?
well played.
Good game.
Hello, this is the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel where I feature deck techs of all kinds, and today we are in on Dominaria Commanders, and today is Knight Tribal with Aryel, Knight of Windgrace, leading the way. Aryel is 2 white-black for a 4/4 legendary human knight. Aryel has Vigilance. For 2 and a white and tap, create a 2/2 white knight creature token with Vigilance, and for black and tap X untapped knights you control, destroy target creature with power X or less. One of the great things about Aryel is that she is one of the first knight-centered legendary creatures we've ever had. Before, knight enthusiasts had to cobble together something that didn't work with their tribe, and now Aryel is here. And of course, the second thing that draws me to playing Aryel as a commander is that she's riding into battle on a ferocious, gigantic jaguar. Oh, she's so badass. Let's go a little bit deeper into these abilities because it's a little bit confusing. Are knights really aggressive? Like, are we supposed to be attacking, pumping out knights, playing 2/2s for 2? Or are we supposed to be reaching a critical mass of knights? This has to be a little bit later in the game to get enough to use Aryel's second tap ability, which lets us destroy target creature. In order to kill relevant creatures, we're going to have to get into the late game when we have quite a few knights out on the battlefield. So is this an aggressive deck or a controlling deck? And finally, we got to talk about what makes tribal decks really tribal and maybe how to spice this up so it just isn't a bunch of knights sleeved up with Aryel at the helm. So the first thing I want to talk about is how iconic this tribe is. Knight Tribal is so cool, and there's a reason why it really resonates with us in Dominaria, and it goes all the way back to Alpha when people were playing white knights and black knights, and they were sort of pitted against each other, and you're like, yeah, these knights are great. And then they give us a throwback with Knight of Grace and Knight of Malice. Very cool and very aggressive cards. I mean, first striking, attacking for 3 most of the time because this is a multicolored deck. So knights have this really cool old feel. But it turns out that knights are actually a little bit of a muddled tribe. I think a good example comes when you're trying to find some of the best knights, and they happen to be vampires. And these vampires have vampire synergies. Let's take, for example, Champion of Dusk. It's a knight, and it's a knight that we want. Champion of Dusk is 3 black for a 4/4 vampire knight, and when Champion of Dusk enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of vampires you control. I don't know how I feel about my Knight Tribal having vampire tribal sub-themes in it. Maybe this is just a flavor thing that no one else cares about but me, but if this just draws me a single card, it's definitely worth it in my knight deck. And so we're at a crossroads here about what kind of cards we're going to include. Let's also look at Elenda the Duskrose, a great knight that just happens to pump out some vampires. But vampires aren't even the only tribe that have found its way into our knight tribal deck, and that is soldiers. Hero of Bladehold has to be one of the better knights that have ever been printed. Hero of Bladehold is great, 2 white for a 3/4 human knight with Battle Cry, very aggressive, and it puts 2 white soldier tokens onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. So again, this kind of makes sense that the knights lead soldiers, I get it, but do we really want a bunch of soldier synergies in our deck? Let's bring up another one, Knight Captain of Eos. This knight is awesome. I mean, look at him. He's got freaking towers on his shoulders, he's got parapet pauldrons, and he comes with white soldier creature tokens. Are we okay with this mixing of the tribes? But actually, let's just put all of that out of mind. I'm fine with mixing of tribes. I can have these 2 cards in my deck. But what I'm really concerned about is from a deck building standpoint. Hero of Bladehold is over the top aggressive. Battle Cry, tapped and attacking soldiers, Knight Captain of Eos. it puts 2/1/1 white knight soldier creature tokens into play and then has a fog attached to this knight. What kind of decks are we running where we have the most aggressive versions like Battle Cry and then we're also running a fog? It could make for really interesting play, and I'm gonna try it out, but it feels like we're lacking identity not only in the tribes that we're including but also in the deck building. Let's go back to look at a few vampires to further drive this point home. Blood Crazed Paladin is 1 and a black for a 1/1 flash vampire knight, and when it enters the battlefield it gets huge for all the creatures that died this turn. Blood Crazed Paladin is exactly what we're looking for in an aggressive deck. We want to be able to rebuild quickly when someone disrupts our just army of 2/2 knights. Blood Crazed Paladin is great and it's aggressive. And we also have right next to it Vona, Butcher of Magan. It's a 5 CMC vampire knight, and it's got this slow tap destroy target non-land permanent ability, and you can only use it during your turn. And so it's very interesting to see these two different takes, and we're going to see this over and over again. In fact, I would argue that it's even on Aryel herself. She can be aggressive and add to the board. She can also take something out slowly if you have a big enough board presence. So this deck may have a little bit of an identity crisis, and I don't know how to fix it, because what I've done is looked at my favorite knights and stuck them all together, and some of them happen to be really aggressive and others maybe a little bit dirtily. Hopefully we draw them in all the right order and then we curve out into something aggressive that then turns mid-rangey and ends up controlling if we need it. That could be fine. Most importantly, what we have to do is, as we play it in our metagames, we're really critical about what knights we use and which ones perform well, and then make sure that our support cards, our supplemental cards, support the strategy that we want. It's okay to have some aggressive cards in a deck. Just make sure that you have the way to transition into your more controlling cards. And it's okay to have a deck that's sort of more of a mid-range into control strategy that still can attack and punch someone in the face. I want to talk about a few more aggressive, powerful knights, and one of my favorites is Student of Warfare. The level up mechanic is really fun, and I love being able to swing in for 3 on turn 2, and then later on in the game when you feel like you don't have anything, you suddenly have a 4/4 double striker. Oh, great. Knight of Metagrain is really solid. It's also riding a goat, which means it's an auto include, and then Sigiled Paladin is riding a lion, so that's also an include. Now, these are just really great aggressive cards that I've played in other Knights decks, and I really like them. But I think we can get even more aggressive, and that's with the 3 drops of Mirren Crusader. Oh my gosh, dude. This guy looks amazing in the art. This is why we love Knights, I think. I look at the art, and I think, oh, it's so cool. But Mirren Crusader, man, double strike and protection from black and from green. So dangerous in a lot of decks. And Silverblade Paladin, soul bonding to other cards to give them both double strike. And Quende synergizes with a surprising amount of your knights. These feel aggressive, right? This feels like something that can end a game. And we have even a few lords, not very many, but a few of them, and some of the best lords of any lords out there. Kinsbale Cavalier is 3 and a white for a 2/2, and knight creatures you control have double strike. Also riding a goat. Just saying, majestic. But seriously, a 4-mana 2/2, double strike, that gives every card you have double strike. This lord is insane. And then we have Knight Exemplar. 1 white for a 2/2 first striking knight, and other knight creatures you control have +1/+1 and are indestructible. What? These lords are so good. People have been trying to build knights when the tribe wasn't even around. These lords are so good. Commander players have been jamming any old legendary in the commander slot just so that they could play Knight Tribal, and now We have our knight commander, we have more knights than ever, and we have these old school lords that are just stupid broken. So what other reason do we need to play knights? Oh, there are plenty more reasons. Have you ever met flanking? Woo! I love flanking. Flanking is so weird. Everyone always has to read it, and basically when people block it, it gets -1/-1 until end of turn. By the way, Cavalry Master, other creatures you control with flanking have flanking, so it's double flanking. Yeah, it actually makes blocking really, really difficult and impossible with many different token decks. Alright, I can tell you're a little bit more impressed by the previous two lords rather than this flanking lord I've demonstrated to you. But you know, as long as we're talking about lords, we have the ability to have knights go wide. Call the cavalry and allied reinforcements both put 2/2/2 white knight creature tokens onto the battlefield. Gideon's Phalanx is an instant speed 4 knights with vigilance onto the battlefield. That's pretty crazy too. And this spell mastery is great. If there are 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. That could be a really, really huge blowout if your opponent's trying to wipe your board or if you're coming in for a big attack. Then Righteous Confluence can put knights onto the battlefield, but really this exile target enchantment is extremely powerful. And of course, there is one more knight token producer that needs to be mentioned, and that's the brand new History of Benalia. It is very good. 1 white for a saga that creates a 2/2 knight, then creates a 2/2 knight, then gives all of your knights +2/+1 until end of turn. Now, the problem is History of Benalia is over $20 right now. It is a very good card, but this is not a card that's going to last forever, break into older Eternal formats. Instead, when Standard leaves, History of Benalia will not maintain that price point. The price will drop out the bottom of this card. And so many of you that really want to play knight decks will see how cool and powerful this card is and feel like you need to buy it for $20-something. And my advice is just wait until it rotates. I know that's so far away, but if you wait until it rotates, it'll be so cheap. But I know you're going to want to buy it now. Okay, let's move on. But History of Benalia is a 100% include, wait a long time and get it for cheap later. I have one more token producer I want to talk about, and that's Gideon, ally of Zendikar. He makes knight ally creature tokens, which is great, just pump them out every turn, but also Gideon does something else really important, and that's creating an emblem. Knights are just 2/2s. They sometimes do some good stuff in combat, but they're not really relevant. But if you can stack these anthem effects, including Gideon, you can make them really powerful. And that's why I've also included Dauntless Marshal. White, other creatures you control get +1/+1. It's a knight, it pumps your other creatures. This is going to fit in perfectly. I do want to mention one thing. The mana in this deck is not very good. Look at this Dauntless Marshal. White. Ugh. I already talked about Black Knight and White Knight. Black, white. There's a lot of mana symbols in here, which means, you know, Nykthos Shrine to Nyx could produce a lot of mana for you. Good on ya. But many other times you might have problems with mana, and that means a more discount mana base could give you trouble. Also, if this is supposed to be an aggressive deck, you don't really want tap lands either. So if you want to play your white knights on 2, this Dauntless Marshal on 3, you want to be able to play any sort of double black spell, you're going to need to have a little bit more of an expensive mana base and pay extra close attention to it, or sacrifice some of that speed. I just want to throw that disclaimer out there, and also, you know, this is something you should keep in mind when you're deck building. Okay. Gideon, ally of Zendikar is great, and I think that there's another card that can pair really nicely with it, and that's Thalia's Lancers, because it's a 5 CMC knight with first strike, and it draws you a card. It basically draws you Gideon, ally of Zendikar, because we don't have that many legendary cards in this deck. We have a few, and that makes me sad that we don't have more, because Arvad the Cursed is an awesome knight. And so I think we're going to include Arvad the Cursed anyways. You know, we got some vampires that are legendary in here. Our commander is legendary, so there are targets for Thalia's Lancers, and Arvad the Cursed will occasionally pump stuff. But now I feel like I've transitioned sort of away from this. Let's put out a bunch of knights, put out a bunch of tokens, flood the board, pump them up, attack. It's a very simple aggressive strategy. As soon as we're messing around with Thalia's Lancers, going and fetching up other knights, we might be looking to slow down the game, go a little bit more mid-rangey. And so let's talk about some more knights that might support that strategy. I already spoke a little bit about how Aryel could pivot between something more aggressive and a little bit controlling. And so I want to highlight that feature with some other knights. First up, Dauntless Bodyguard. A 1-mana 2/1, super aggressive. Play it on turn 1, start swinging in and doing damage, great. But as Dauntless Bodyguard enters the battlefield, choose another creature you control, sacrifice Dauntless Bodyguard, the chosen creature gains indestructible until end of turn. So this is aggressive in the early game, and can hold back and kind of protect a more important and critical creature in the late game. That's the kind of flexibility I think we need in this kind of deck. So we're not screwed by playing a 2/1 on turn 10. Alright, let's go on to our next creature that pivots very nicely. Josuves Lich Knight. 2 black for 4/5 menace. Just a great card. I would play that, but if we happen to get to 10 mana, then Josuves Lich Knight can enter the battlefield with 8 2/2 black zombie knight creature tokens with menace. Josuves is the top end of this knight strategy, and 10 mana, by the way, is a lot. Now this is a commander card. I am in love with Josuves. Play it on turn 4, start impacting the battlefield, getting in damage, really pressuring your opponent. In a different situation, you top deck this and then slam it down and win the game on the back of 20 power worth of knights. I feel like I have to mention another late game knight strategy, and that's Hakon Stormgald Scourge. Just have to point out another amazing piece of art, but this is just an amazing card. 1 black for a 3/3 zombie knight, and you may play Hakon Stormgald Scourge from your graveyard, but not from anywhere else. You can only play this from your graveyard. Okay, and as long as he's in play, you may play knight cards from your graveyard. If we could make this knight work, it would be so good. We could just keep playing knights and not worry about our board being wiped. Oh man, this would be kind of difficult to get into our graveyard. I don't know, maybe a Gaia Reach Sanitarium. I think I might lean a little bit more on Sun Titan, even though it's a giant, to try and get my recursion, my value engine going, even though Hakon is really cool and a zombie knight himself. A few more knights that help us play in the long game. Knight of Obligation has Extort, one of the greatest mechanics for dragging out a game possible, and again, the art, insane. Knights of the Black Rose, again, the art, amazing. Maybe I just like knights, I don't know. But anyways, Knights of the Black Rose have Monarch, which is great because it just gives you card advantage. We want that anyways, but the Monarch really wants us to hang back a little bit, be able to attack, but also be able to block and protect our own monarchy. And finally, we're going to round out this category with something similar with how I rounded out the aggressive category, and that's with some enablers. Vanquisher's Banner and Door of Destinies. Now this is kind of like the Banalish Marshal and Gideon. It's about pumping up your team, but these are so much slower and give us long-term value. Vanquisher's Banner has us draw a card whenever we cast a creature spell of the chosen type. Oh, so good, but it starts on 5 mana. So this is more of a late game impactful card. And Door of Destinies, we need to play multiple knights to sort of ramp up the door and really ramp up our team. So are we going aggressive? Do we want those 3 mana anthems? Or is it okay to have these 5 mana anthems that give us card advantage, or the Door of Destinies that really starts getting powerful after we play a couple knights? I don't know. I'm going to include them all, and again, hope that I draw my cards in the right CMC sequence. hopefully I shed some light on this tribe and how interesting it is to have so many different types of cards. But now I want to talk about some spice. How could we make this Knight Tribal more of our own? Less just doing a gatherer search for Knight and throwing all the ones we like in. Well, I think there's a few different ways. One of them is to put in an equipment package. Knights are great with equipment. You have Pure Steel Paladin, Balan, and Auriok Steel Shaper, and Danatha Capsaicin, Capuchin Paragon. All of these are Knights, and all of them work really well with equipment, so you can throw in an equipment package. I don't know if that strategy is spicy enough for you, because equipment and white go really well together. It's almost expected. You know, there is a card that I want to focus on, and that's Crusading Knight. 2 white for a Knight that has protection from black. Only a 2/2. Crusading Knight gets +1/+1 for each swamp your opponents control. You know, this deck does run an Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. This could make a crazy big Crusading Knight. Oh, that's so much fun. This reminds me of the Angry Mob combo. It's not really a combo, it's just kind of a similar synergy. Maybe we'd throw an Angry Mob in there too to really get some other people angry. We could throw in a Karma. Karma is just such a great old school card. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, Karma deals damage to that player equal to the number of swamps he or she controls. Just gross with Urborg, because we're going to be the ones doing damage, and our deck can operate on far fewer lands than our opponents. You know, seeing the White Knight, the Black Knight, this Knight, and Karma, it has me thinking that a lot of Knights really hate out specific colors. Pentarch Paladin lets you choose a color, and then you can pay white and tap it to destroy target permanent of the chosen color. And it has flanking. Yes! So this is sort of a slower controlling Knight, and it hates out specific colors. I like the sound. How about Order of the Sacred Torch? 1 white for a human Knight, tap, pay a life, counter target black spell. Just imagine if you're playing against a black deck, you're like, yeah, my horsey is gonna tap and counter that spell of yours. Yeah, no Torment of Hailfire for you. Yes, we can focus on this hate. Light Wielder Paladin. 3 white for a 4/4 first strike, and it's riding Rhino? Moving on. Whenever Light Wielder Paladin deals combat damage to a player, you may exile target black or red permanent that player controls. You just exile a permanent. It's great. And there's more cards like this. Western Paladin and Eastern Paladin. They tap to destroy either a white creature or a green creature, and they look so kick-ass. That seems to be a theme of mine right now. And of course, Northern Paladin and Southern Paladin, you can pay 2 white and tap it, and this isn't just a creature you're destroying a permanent. I'm thinking we embrace this strategy of color hating all of our opponents out, and if you happen to be playing against the right deck, then you'll just roll them as you counter their spells and destroy their permanents. I think I effectively summed up a bunch of key points as I went through the deck tech. So I want to move on to thanking you for watching this video. If you liked it, tell me you like it in the comments or with that thumbs up button. And if you like this kind of thing, go ahead and consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon so you can see more Dominaria deck techs, more crazy tribal synergies. And I also have to thank my patrons. Thank you, patrons. You are 100% the reason why I have time to make these videos. I cannot thank you enough.